An important topic that is much on minds today is the topic of blasphemy. People from various religions are speaking against each other and each other's religions. And it has become so serious that actually murders are taking place, beheadings are taking place, and many minds are disturbed, and generally people are very agitated. If you put on the television today, you will find that is on the 7th of July 2022. There, almost every channel is carrying news of people who have committed blasphemy and the agitation that has resulted from their blaspheming each other's religions. So I thought it was appropriate that today we speak on this topical subject and we talk about what the Bhagavad Geeta says on regulating your speech so that one does not create the situations that we see today. The Bhagavad Geeta is not against violence. It in fact demands surgical violence. It demands the essential violence that a soldier needs to perform, that a Kshatriya needs to perform in the duties that are given to him. In fact, the whole book is about that. The whole of the Bhagavad Gita is about Arjun refusing to engage in necessary violence, surgical violence, and he has been asked by Arjun, by Krishna, to go ahead and do his duty without fear of incurring bad karma or sin. But this is for the Kshatriya. It is also for those whose duty it is to engage in violence, because often violence is curbed by violence. And the state needs to use violence in order to curb the violence of thugs, of robbers, of murderers in the common populace. But what do spiritual texts say about how we should speak? And it is so important to discuss this because the idea of speaking and disturbing another person's mind by expressing what is popularly known as blasphemy, as insult against your beliefs and religion, requires careful consideration. The most important quality that people have to acquire is to control their mind and their senses. Indeed, in the world, there are only two types of people. I wouldn't even say there are different religions. I would say there are only two types of people. Those who can control their mind and their senses, and those who cannot control their mind and their senses. those who can control their mind and their senses, whatever their religion, are devotees of God, and they are a blessing to every land. Whereas those who have not controlled their mind and their intelligence, who engage in random acts of violence, who perform violence which is egregious, which is, shall we say, absolutely unnecessary. Such behavior is created and caused only by those who have not controlled their mind and their senses. And of all the senses that we possess, the most important sense is the tongue. In the Upadeshamrit, there is a verse which says, Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam jiva vegam udaro pashta vegam etan vegan yo vishaheta dhira sarvam apiman prithim shashishya. One who can control the tongue, vacho vegam, one who can control his speech, one who can control the urges of the mind and also control his anger. He controls his ability to speak, he controls his mind, and he controls his anger. Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam jiva vegam udaro pashta vegam. See, the tongue is a very unique organ. It is an organ which is an active organ with which we speak, and it's also a passive organ which has taste. And when we control the tongue, we need to control both. We need to control the tongue and its ability to speak. We also need to control that sense of taste. Because when we control that sense of taste, that tongue, then following control of the tongue, you control the belly and one can control the genitals as well. But one whose tongue is now remains uncontrolled, his belly also he loses control. And when the belly he loses control of his genitals as well. But one who can control the tongue, both in its ability to speak as well as its ability to control taste, not to not become a victim of taste. Such a person, the Upadeshamrit advises, is a person who is qualified to make disciples the world over. The greatest gift is that gift by which we learn to control the tongue. How many times in your own life have you said the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong person in the wrong manner? And recall now the consequences of what you said. Whereas where you have restrained your tongue, where you have controlled your tongue, and you have learned to speak only when required, as required, in the manner required, it has brought completely different results. Uncontrolled speech has consequences, and those consequences can be very, very, very bad. You should understand that a wound that is caused by a knife, a wound that is caused by a dagger, a wound that is caused by an arrow is a wound that could heal, but a wound that is caused by your tongue, my friend, that wound caused by your tongue will last not just one lifetime. You will carry this wound life after life after life after life. Therefore, it is so important that we should control what we speak. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about the importance of following austerity. What do we mean by following austerity? Austerity is tapasya, and following tapasya is an integral part of restraining the senses. So tapasya Krishna declares in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 17, starting in verse 14, 15, 16, he explains that there are three types of tapasyas. There are three types of tapasyas, there are three types of austerities. And Bhagavad Gita, you should understand, never recommends fasting. This is something that has come as an accretion, as an add-on, as a contamination from other religions. Krishna clearly says in the Bhagavad Gita that this path is not meant for those who eat too little. It is not meant for those who eat too much. But those who are moderate in their eating, those who are moderate in their sleeping, and those who are moderate in their recreation can mitigate all suffering by following the system of yoga. This is very important. But we see people inspired by other religions fasting for days and days at a time, damaging their internal body organs, damaging the health of their children, in some cases by inspiring their children to fast unto death. Even if it is unintended, it is known to cause their death. So therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna clearly states that these forms of ghor tapasya, these forms of extreme austerity that physically damage the body are not recommended by him. And then he describes that all tapasya is divided into tapasya of the body, tapasya of the tongue, of speech, tapasya of the mind. And Krishna says in chapter 17, verse 14, Deva Dvija Guru Pragna Pujanam Saucham Arjavam Brahmacharyam Ahimsa Cha Shariram Tapah Uchyate. To worship with the austerity of the body. That is to bow yourself before the Supreme Lord and the gods. To bow yourself, your physical body should be bowed before those who are spiritually educated and learned. You should bow before your teachers. You should bow before your elders. All these you should learn how to worship with respect. Also, you must have cleanliness for your body. You must have simplicity, straightforwardness in your body and your dress. Wherever it is appropriate, you should practice celibacy. You should engage in non-violence. This is declared by Krishna as the austerity of the body, as tapasya of the body. So when you have this attitude of respect, and because you bow and you offer worship to all these respected personalities, because you follow non-violence where appropriate, celibacy where appropriate, cleanliness, indeed, you are straightforward and simple in your dress, your attire. All these are said by Krishna to be tapasya of the body. Now we come to the most relevant, the control of the tongue. And that control of the tongue, which indeed will give you tremendous peace and save you from being a victim of the world. In chapter 17, verse 15, Krishna says, Anudvegam karam vakyam satyam priyam hitam chayat swadhyaya bhashanam chaiva vanmayam tapah uchyate. The first sentence, which is most important, Anudvegam karam vakyam. Do not speak anything that disturbs anybody's mind. This is the first and therefore the most important of all. Do not, he doesn't say be silent. Some people think that, to be austerity of the speech means you should be silent. And people often think that silence is golden and everyone should be silent. First of all, it is not possible for everyone to be silent. Secondly, in fact, being silent can often be a cause of major problems. Krishna doesn't ask you to silence your tongue. Krishna, as we will see, asks you to silence your mind. It is not silence of the tongue that is important. It is silence of the mind that is important. And before we come to the mind, we must understand what is austerity of the tongue and austerity of speech. First of all, do not disturb anybody else's mind. Do not disturb the mind of your spouse. Do not disturb the mind of your children. Do not disturb the mind of your domestic staff. Do not disturb the mind of people who report to you in the office. Do not disturb anybody's mind. You should write that down and you should hang it around your neck. Do not disturb anybody's mind. But sir, suppose it is true. Suppose I am speaking the truth. Do I not have the right to speak the truth even if it disturbs somebody's mind? And very clearly, Krishna says, Satyam Priyam Hitam Cha Yat. Don't disturb anybody's mind. Speak the truth, Satyam, but not all truth. Speak that truth which is Priyam. Speak that truth which is beneficial. And then he says, even if it is beneficial, don't speak it. Indeed, if it is not pleasant. So speak the truth, speak only that truth which is pleasant, and don't speak even pleasant truth if it is not beneficial. Let us say that your child is so intelligent that your child does not need to study before the exam. Do you tell your child, oh child, you are so brilliant? That's the truth. You are so intelligent. That's also the truth. And both of these are very priya. They are very, very pleasant to hear for the child. And even if you don't study until the last day before your exam, you still do well. This is the truth. This is pleasant, but it is not beneficial. Because as he goes ahead in class, as he goes ahead in college, as he goes ahead in his post-graduation, these words will come back to haunt you. Speak the truth, speak what is pleasant, speak what is beneficial. Swadhyaya Abhyasanam Chaiva. Many people often translate this Swadhyaya Bhashanam Chaiva as recitation of Vedic scriptures. But indeed, it is not really, I don't take it as that, only recitation of Vedic scriptures, although recitation of Vedic scriptures is definitely beneficial to you. We have a tendency to give our opinion. Stop giving your opinion and give the opinion of authorities like the scriptures. Don't give your opinion. Give the opinion of the scriptures, of the authoritative texts. If you're a doctor, give the reference of the standard textbook in the subject where you are practicing. Don't say, this is my opinion. I've practiced for 20 years, so I should know. No. You say, in this textbook, which is taken as a standard textbook for this subject, this is what it says. If you're a lawyer, certainly quote the law. You can quote precedent. Don't say, I think. Don't get into I, me, myself. Similarly, whichever field that you are currently in, never try to throw your own opinion, your own ego, your own weight around. Always humbly and simply quote an authoritative scripture recognized by all in that field, and thus make it clear what you want to say. So when you speak in a manner that does not disturb anyone's mind, when you speak the truth which is pleasant and also beneficial only, Don't speak anything that disturbs somebody's mind. Don't speak anything that is untruth. Don't speak anything that is unpleasant. And don't speak anything which is not beneficial. Always quote from authority. This is called the austerity of speech. Imagine how many cases of blasphemy would have taken place if people had been schooled in this verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Text 17, chapter 17, text 15. We would have none of these sensational disturbances going on in society. In Manusmriti also, it has been mentioned. Satyam bruyat priyam bruyan, na bruyat satyam apriyam. Priyam cha nanritam bruya desha dharma sanatana. Speak the truth in a way that is pleasing to others. Do not speak the truth in a way that is injurious to others. Never speak untruth even if it is pleasant. This is the eternal path of morality and dharma. Now we come to what is called austerity of the mind. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Manaha prasadaha sauyatvam maunamatma vinigraha bhava samshuddhir ityetat tapo manasam uchyate. Let your mind be content. Let your mind be serene. Let your mind be gentle. And let your mind be silent. What a ladder is given. Mana prasada, serenity of thought. Saumyatvam, gentleness, be gentle. Maunam, be silent. Let your mind be silent. Atma vinigraha, self-control. Bhava samshuddhir, ityetat, have purity of purpose. Don't act for I, me, mine. Act for the well-being of all in general. This is called bhava samshuddhir. And this, Krishna says, tapaha manasam uchyate. So if you can keep your mind silent, there is no need for you to keep your tongue silent, because to keep your tongue silent will handicap and paralyze you in everyday behavior and conduct. Shraddhaya paraya tap taptam tapas tat trividham naray afala kankshebhir yukte satvikam parichakshate. When people full of faith, spiritually transcendental individuals full of faith, they practice these three austerities, not for name, not for fame, not for material rewards, then these behaviors are considered tapasya in the mode of sattva guna. So it is so important that we do not disturb the minds of others. We speak the truth. And not only we speak the truth, but we speak that truth which is pleasant. And not just that truth which is pleasant, but that truth which is both pleasant and beneficial. In Narada Bhakti Sutra, very clearly it has been described. Striya Dhana Nastika Charitram Na Shravaniyam. Clearly, in Narada Bhakti Sutra, Narada speaks and he says, Do not find entertainment in talks that deal with women, money, and atheists. So also it's important for you to realize that the more you speak about beautiful members of the opposite sex, not just women, but also men, such talk increases lust. If you talk about wealth, dhana, lifestyles of the rich and famous, who is the richest man in the world, where does he stay, what is his house like, it increases greed. If you talk about atheists or even talk to atheists, the result will be that you will go into illusion. So lust, greed, and illusion can largely be avoided if you stop talking about attractive members of the opposite sex or same sex, of wealth and wealthy people, of atheists. Also, don't talk about people who are inimical to you. Those who are your enemies, don't talk about them, because this will increase anger. So your chances of speaking and arousing lust, greed, illusion, anger will be diminished if you stop talking about all these subjects. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Sanatan Goswami that a person who is devoted to Lord Krishna should avoid reading or hearing unnecessary things, including news, books, and all matters of the world that appeal to the senses. So you will find, if you turn on your television set, not only will you find crime, cinema, you will also find causes of disasters going on, politics that divides just as spirituality unites. And all this, my friends, will take you further from God. This is called prajalpa. Prajalpa means entertaining yourself with things that have nothing to do with God. So if you want to understand clearly, you need to keep your distance from people of the world, because people of the world in majority are largely having uncontrolled mind and senses. Unfortunately, they may not have proper training. And not only do they not have proper training, but also because their senses and mind are uncontrolled, they are inclined to violence. This also occurs because the nature of the world is full of suffering. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukha, Doshanu, Darshanam. Birth, death, old age, disease, fault, misfortune, and happiness. They're guaranteed to everyone. This is a dukhalayam, a shashvatam, a nityam, or sukham lokam. So by controlling your speech, do not contribute to the miseries of the world. Keep yourself away from the miseries of the world by not participating in these miseries. Follow austerity of mind, austerity of speech, austerity of the body. Avoid subject matters that increase your lust, your greed, your madness, your anger. All these should be reduced. Don't waste your time, because all these things will distract you from your spiritual life, will agitate your mind and your senses, and indeed will create in the long run deep sorrow for you. So I will pause here. If there are any questions, please feel free to go ahead and ask.
Sure, sir. Good morning, sir. Our first question is how one should respond to blasphemy.
Don't respond to it.
At all.
Don't respond to it at all.
Sure,
Anyone who blasphemes is mentally agitated. Anyone who blasphemes has a mind which is disturbed, whose senses are uncontrolled. Therefore, they are responding to the suffering in the world and provocation in the world by saying and doing things which cause agitation to other people's minds. And this goes on like a vicious circle, agitating more and more people's minds. Therefore, find peace. The nature of the agitated soul is like a mirror to reflect whatever comes upon it. So if someone blasphemes your God, you will blaspheme their prophet. This is a mirror. You don't be a mirror, you be a sponge. Whatever is thrown at you, absorb it. Smile, bless them. Because God is not affected by what other people say. They are the ones who are going to be affected and feel miserable about it. So therefore, the best way to respond to blasphemy is not to hear about it, not to hear it. And if you hear it, to ignore it.
Sure, sir. So with that, moving to next question. Sir, is there any punishment of blasphemy according to Bhagavad Gita?
See, in the Mahabharata, there's an example of Krishna, who endured insults, which for him, because he was God, was actually blasphemy. And he endured insults not once, 99 times he tolerated the insult. When the 100th insult came, then he used his Sudarshan Chakra and cut off the head. So you should become aware, not that you are God or you should behave like God, but generally speaking, you should avoid people who are inimical to you. Because by avoiding people who are inimical to you, you will find tremendous peace of mind. If necessary, even change your job. If necessary, even change your place of residence. And if you are serious, God will give you every assistance.
Sure, sir. It's like saving ourselves from all these talkings.
Yes.
Sure. Sir, when we were talking about telling the truth, so is it about choosing the right words to tell the truth? There are manners of saying the truth. Some people say it in such a way that could
There's a
the
very nice book by the late Marshall Greenberg called Nonviolent Communication. There he describes what are the obstacles to communication. And in the obstacles to communication, he says that judgment, criticism, classification, comparison are all acts of violence. How many people who are listening here have compared their child to somebody else? Why can't you be like that child? Why can't you study harder like that child? Why can't you be quiet like that child? These are acts of violence you commit towards your children. So judgment, criticism, classification, and also comparison are obstacles to communication. And we should certainly avoid all of these.
Sure, sir. So these were questions for today, and we will be seeing you next week.
So
Thank you so much.
ignore blasphemy. Don't pay attention to it. Don't turn on channels that talk about it. Ignore it. You don't commit blasphemy. You don't forget about blasphemy. Don't speak anything that disturbs another person's mind. And avoid all subjects of conversation that agitate your own mind.
Sure. So what one can do is not involving one's own self into it.
Correct.
Taking one's own responsibility.
Hari
Thank you
Om,
so much, sir.
Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.